Back in late January, I introduced you all to the 7.5-inch gauge replica of Rio Grande Southern No. 20. Back last month in March, Largo Central Railroad decided to have a little experiment. They brought out that locomotive to haul public trains on. And it went really well. So they decided to do it this week as well, which is why I'm here. But there's also another reason why I'm here as well. That locomotive and its owner, Jim, they're going up north after this weekend. The Railway Museum up in, I believe, Indiana, have asked him to come back up there to run his locomotive on their 7.5-inch gauge railroad as well. I'll mention here that while recording this unscripted piece to camera, I didn't know what the name of the museum was, but now I know. It's the Hesston Steam Museum, which has a 2-foot and 3-foot dual-gauge railroad set up going around the museum. It also has a 14-inch gauge line and a 7.5-inch gauge line, the line that Jim will be running his RGNS number 20 on. If you went and looked up at the museum as I mentioned the name, you might recognize the Czech-built 2-foot gauge 040T built by the Česko Moraviska Kolbendenik in 1940, as it was featured in the made-for-TV special I Love Toy Trains. So, this public run will be the final public run that the Rio Grande Southern No. 20 replica will be running today until the fall, until the autumn months come about. Our journey, though, really began with taking the locomotive out of the barn and setting it up in the steaming bay, ready for firing. This entails fitting the tender tank up full of water, as well as the boiler via the injectors, and replacing the empty propane fuel canisters with fresh ones. Then, it was on to grease the grease nipples on the big ends of the valve gear in between the frames, as well as oiling up all the moving parts, such as crank pins, slide bars, valve stems, piston valves, brake hangers, and expansion links. The McCoy automatic lubricators had been filled to the brim with steam oil prior to this, so Santino and I mainly focused on the moving parts of the engine. A few hours later, Jim, number 20's owner, had arrived, and we lit the fire before giving the locomotive another once-over of oil on the motion.
We're going to keep it real small because we don't have the inducer going yet.
The electric blower was fitted onto the chimney to create a draft to keep the fire from flowing out of the fire hole door. Half an hour later, the needle was coming off the peg, and a few minutes later, RGNS number 20 was in steam.
All about to finish. Push it decently. So we're doing some kind of weird reverse loop.
Later on, I found myself operating as station master for the day, while one of the head volunteers went to get lunch for the others. One key aspect in maintaining the locomotive's performance was re-oiling all the lubrication points on the engine. This is done every 2 miles, or 2 laps of the track, with number 20. In terms of water capacity, the locomotive can go about 4 to 5 laps around Largo's track before needing a refill. As station master, I was in charge of making sure that the water main was active and running, so that the water tank could be refilled when needed. Later on in the day, there were enough volunteers at the station for me to be able to go out and film number 20. That is after she gets refilled with propane, that is.
What were we when we started?
We're just
I see it. Among one of the tools I brought with me was a camera gimbal that I got as an early birthday present. Early as in about a month or so early. This was my first time using it at LCRR, which meant I had a bit of a learning curve with it. Especially if I didn't want to trip and fall. All things considered, number 20 was really showing her stuff, despite the size of her load. But as the day started to wind down, number 20 started to lose pressure. Santino tried to nurse her around the track, but it was soon clear she wasn't going to make it back to the station with her passengers. Number 20 was then switched off onto the Seminole Boulevard curve, away from the Fern bypass, the track we were using that day. And the passengers were picked up by a CSX 200, who was sitting idle in the station siding. It became apparent that one of the propane tanks had frozen fuel inside of it, resulting in the fire stifling. As a result of this, number 20's days of running was cut short. She was taken back to the yard, where her fire was put out, and she was ready to be put back into the barn. Even though the day ended on a bit of a downer, there was still a pretty good turnout. But, for now, it's a long rest for number 20 before she heads up north to Hesston.